we're going to share screen. So that's also the reason why I like using the Zoom versus just utilizing the live stream, because I find that this works out so much better. For those of you just joining us, we're going over information about purchasing a home. One of the first things that we're talking about is where to find out about your credit score. Your credit score for a mortgage is different than your credit score for anything else. And it's important that you know where to look for it. And myfico.com is the only one that's actually going to have the proper information. And the reason being is that myfico.com breaks it down by here's your mortgage score, here's your auto loan score, here's your credit card score, and here's your other loans. Now, under other loans right now is the FICO 10, which as of second quarter next year should be what your loan officers are going to be using. And the more I read about it, the less I really like it. Supposedly it's going to result in a 5% higher approval. But the issue becomes that FICO 10T is going to be all about your trending score. So no longer is it going to be what your score is right now. It's going to be what your score has been over the last 12, 24, and maybe even 36 months. They're taking public comments on it right now. You can go to the Fannie or Freddie website concerning it and leave your thoughts as far as that's concerned. But that's where we're at right now, is that they're changing the scores. But in the meantime, most people don't realize that there's 28 different scoring models for your credit. There's about to be 30. So besides FICO 10T, they're also talking about Vantage 4.0, not to be confused with what Credit Karma uses. Credit Karma scores have nothing to do with any lending institution in any way, shape, or form. So myfico.com is the only one that's going to tell you accurately what your mortgage credit score is, because there's no quantifier. When you go to buy a car, your previous auto loans are adjusting your credit score for buying a car because they're putting more weight on that. And they did that because after the housing crisis of 2008, after all these people got foreclosed on, they're like, how are we going to lend people cars when they had foreclosures? So they decided that they're going to adjust the algorithm to put an additional weight on your previous car payments, because even though people were getting foreclosed on, they were still paying their car payments. So myfico.com is the first place you want to go to just to find out where your credit score is and what's going on with it. If you want to speak to me, if you are in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, or Florida, you can actually go on my website to this happy little big button right here, where you can do a soft credit pull on your credit. And what that one does is it's not going to drop your score. It's not a hard inquiry. It's not as accurate as if I do a hard inquiry, but it's accurate for mortgages. And I'm only pulling 2 of your 3. And then that gives me an idea as how to figure out your debt to income ratio, anything that we may need to work on, because I don't believe anybody's ever denied. Sometimes delayed, and we need to do a little bit of work on, you know, your credit score, some of your debts, maybe some of your collections accounts. So, you know, you can go on there. It doesn't cost you anything. And we can have a conversation about building your roadmap on how to purchase a home. There's also other information throughout my entire website that you're welcome to check into. For anybody who doesn't know, we work with over 200 lenders with every loan program you can possibly think of. There's certain loans that I won't do personally, just because I don't think they benefit people, or I don't think I'm going to be solid enough on it in order to be able to effectively help you, like mobile homes. I don't do mobile homes. I have coworkers who do. They're a little tricky, and because I don't know them inside and out, especially in these times, I don't want to delay your closing because of the fact that I need a little additional help, which I do have coworkers. I do have support staff. I do have ways to get that information, but my average close time is 3 to 18 business days. My average close time once we go under contract is 3 to 18 business days. And that's because I get everything up front and I make sure you're fully pre-approved. Pre-approvals are not when somebody runs AUS. Pre-approvals when everything gets submitted to an underwriter and the underwriter comes back. If you have a pre-approval that's less than 2 pages long, it's not a real one. Flat out, it's not. If all the conditions on it are boilerplate for title and appraisal, it's not a real pre-approval. It hasn't been to an underwriter yet. If the underwriter hasn't seen your file, your loan officer could be having a wonky day and miss something. Everybody misses something that happens. The underwriter's job is to not miss anything. The underwriter's job is to approve a loan, which is why they're the only ones who can pre-approve the loan. And what they do is they match everything up not only to the federal regulations, but they also match them up to any lender overlays. Okay, so the next thing that everybody wants to know about is down payment assistance programs. For those of you on TikTok, I do apologize. I keep up the camera so that you can see things. Down payment assistance programs are not just for her first-time home buyers. So when you contact a loan officer and you say, I'm a first-time home buyer, I'm looking into first-time home buyer programs, their first answer should not be, okay, so you're looking for down payment assistance. Their first answer should be, what are you looking for in your program? And the reason for that question is some people do need the down payment assistance. That's what they're specifically looking for. Some people want the additional education of being a first-time home buyer, which is awesome. Anytime you can go to any class about buying a home through your state or local government, it's always a good thing. And I think everybody should do it if they can. For some people, they want to understand how being a first-time home buyer affects the way things work out. Because when you're a first-time home buyer, you do get loan level pricing adjustments because we are trying to help more people become homeowners. For some people, it's just strictly the down payment, but down payment assistance is not just for first-time home buyers. A lot of your state and local programs, they are set up for moderate to low income people. So if you don't fall into under 80% of the area median income, you may not qualify for those programs, and your loan officer should be able to look into those and tell you whether you can or you cannot. This list I have up here is people who are not low income or people who have higher debts, because a lot of your state and local programs, you have to be under a 40% debt to income ratio. And realistically, not a lot of people are going to be able to find homes that fit into that, especially when car payments are $800 to $1,000 a month. So when you have the ability to have higher debt to income ratio, and I'm not saying max it out, I don't max it out for anybody, but when you have that ability, it opens up more possibilities. And with our inventory being so short, having that additional buying power capability makes it more likely you're going to find a home that fits your needs and your desires. Flat out. Okay, so when we're looking at these, you're also looking at, we have to look at what the required FICO score is, because for a lot of these down payment assistance programs, you have to be a 640 or above. So you have to have a lower debt to income ratio, and you have to be a 640 and above FICO score. And with the cost of everything, people's credit scores are dropping. And, you know, so we need to be mindful of how best to help each person. These programs that I have up here will go down to a 580 FICO score, but at a 580 FICO score, I can only get you 3.5 down payment assistance, which 3.5% sounds like a lot, but it's not really, because when you do a down payment assistance program, you do wind up with additional closing costs because there is additional underwriting fees and things of that nature. So if the additional fees come out to be 2.5, it kind of negates that 3.5%. Excuse me. So when you're looking through all of this, I'm looking for a balance in between the down payment assistance and keeping your fees low. On top of that, I'm looking to keep your interest rate lower. With these super high interest rates right now, the down payment assistance program adding an extra 2% to your primary loan is not good. It could be very, very painful, and again, further reduces your buying power, which limits the pools of houses that you're able to look at or put offers in on. We need to find that balance in between everything. So I do have a lender up here who does a 5% down payment assistance. Actually, I have two of them up there that will do a 5%, and I prefer that one. And if you're high income, it's more likely that you're going to need to do a repayable, but that extra 2% interest rate on the down payment assistance is only on that 5%. It's not going to be over the entire amount of the loan. If you also look on here, I'm showing DTI limits. So DTI is debt to income limit. Again, most down payment assistance programs require you to have a lower debt to income ratio, but on these, some of these you're looking at, so EPM does a 2 to 3% down payment assistance. That is forgivable as soon as you close on the loan. And it's a little bit of a better program than some of the other ones, but you do have to have a 620 FICO score. Your income limits, if you look, EPM doesn't have an income limit. Forgivable on one of my other lenders, you have to be less than 160% of the area median income. Most people can hit that without a problem. On another one, you have to be less than 135% of area median income for the best rate overall. But on the repayables, the bump in interest rate is only on the repayable part versus being on the total loan amount. And that's important to know, because if you're looking at a 7.5% interest rate, raising that now to 9.5% is painful. Down payment assistance programs are not free. And I really hate when everybody says that they are, because you have to keep a loan anywhere between 3 to 30 years or pay it back. The interest rates are higher on most of them, and close times on some of them are longer. So if I'm using a state or county down payment assistance program, that means that I have to plan for a 45-day plus closing, because I have to clear you for the first loan, and then the down payment assistance program has to clear you for the second. And make no mistake, it's 2 loans. If you refinance before the 3 to 30 years that they're asking for, you're paying it back. Sometimes that's a bad thing, sometimes it's not. I had a client who, he got $18,000 in down payment assistance, and he reached out to me and I got the terms, and I'm like, I don't know if that $18,000 is gonna, if it's still gonna make sense for you to refinance. And I called him back and said, I was wrong. I'm able to drop the mortgage payment by $300 a month, even with you paying that $18,000, because the interest rate on it was just so much higher. So you've got to look at the pros and the cons in both directions and see what fits you and your situation best. It's kind of where the whole run the numbers comes into play. Okay, so let's see. Anybody has any questions either on Facebook or on TikTok, please ask them, because there's a lot of different things and there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of halfway missing information. And I want to make sure I answer anybody's questions. Your loan officer. You need to verify who your loan officer is. You need to verify that your loan officer is in fact licensed. You also want to know how long your loan officer has been licensed, especially if you don't have a vanilla file. Because one of the problems is there was a lot of people who jumped into being a loan officer, just like there was a lot of people who jumped into being a realtor within the past 2 years. And I see people out there calling themselves a senior loan officer when they're licensed less than 2 years. You need to be licensed at least 3 years before you can call yourself senior. You need to have a team underneath you before you can say that you're a senior loan officer. And really, if you're federally licensed, you can't call yourself a senior loan officer, because of the fact that you're taking the application, maybe taking documents, and then sending it off for somebody else to do the rest of the loan. A senior loan officer is somebody who's taking it from beginning to the end, somebody who's been doing it for a while and knows things inside and out. A senior loan officer, you have to be licensed for at least 3 years or more. You have to have an entire team set up in order to support your clients. And you have to have other loan officers underneath you. It can't be a loan partner. It can't be it can't be somebody else who's doing the majority of the work, because your federally licensed loan officers, again, they're taking the application, they're grabbing the documents, and they're sending them off for somebody else to put the pieces together. That's it. They're not going through the regulations. They're not going through any of that stuff. So how do you verify a loan officer? Super easy. Super easy. You go to NMLSconsumeraccess.org. I don't know if you guys on TikTok can see that thing on there, but it's really just what it says at the top, NMLS consumeraccess.org. What do you need in order to verify a loan officer? Really just their name. All you really need is their name. There's my name. I got Beyonce stuff in my head. And there's me. Now, if you notice, this says that I am in Seawell, New Jersey. I am not physically in Seawell, New Jersey. My branch that I'm tied to is in Seawell, New Jersey, because certain states have a distance requirement and I have to be tied to a branch within a reasonable distance of where I'm operating out of. I do have an office in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Nobody comes here. It's literally just because I can't concentrate at home. And because it's close to my daughter's school, so she can walk here after school after she's done her activities. But it's, you know, I'm not physically in Seawell, New Jersey. I'm physically in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. And one of my favorite things is when realtors say, you know, well, I only deal with local loan officers. Great. I'm 20 minutes from Delaware. I'm 20 minutes from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. How local do you need me to be? Oh, by the way, you know, I've driven 6 hours to go meet up with clients and my realtor partners. You know, I've driven 2.5 hours to scrape and repaint and put up railings for my clients that were moving from Long Island to Pennsylvania. And I do weird things. I take clients out to open houses for pretty much every state except for Florida. Do apologize for my Florida clients. I can't be flying down there all the time. It would get a little crazy. But, you know, the fact of the matter is you can verify your loan officer very, very easily, and you should. You should always know who your loan officer is. You should always know how long they've been licensed. You should know if they're state or federally licensed. And don't get me wrong, I have some friends who are federally licensed loan officers, and they're awesome because they were also state licensed at a different point in time, or they've been account executives, or they've been underwriters. They've been in the business for a very long time. And when you become a loan officer, everything kind of becomes public knowledge. So here's me. Delaware, Florida, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Those are my 6 states. Just underneath that, it says regulatory actions. I have none. I've done nothing wrong. Difference between a state licensed loan officer and a federally licensed loan officer: if I do something wrong, immoral, unjust against somebody, I'm personally responsible for anything that I do. I'm the one going in jail. I'm the one getting the fines. I'm the one that's losing my license. Somebody who's federally licensed, they don't have that responsibility. Think Wells Fargo, think Bank of America, think TD Bank. Their loan officers are not responsible for anything that they do, but they also don't have the same responsibilities. They don't have the same access. They take the application, take documents, and then relay information back and forth. That's the extent of it. Some get a little bit more involved. Some go to look for more information. Most of the time, those people will get out of working for a direct lender and being federally licensed to going state licensed and working for a broker. But you want to look up your loan officer and find out if they're state licensed or if they're federally licensed. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with somebody who's federally licensed, just know that they're not personally responsible for anything that they do. Now, here's where it gets important. This lovely little line right here. When you open it up, it tells you, number one, when I got licensed, 2017. And it also tells you how many places I've worked since I've been licensed. 2. I got an amazing start at US Mortgage Line. They're here in Valley Kidwood, just outside of Philadelphia. But I'm nosy, and they had access to about 8 different lenders. Now I have access to over 200. I like having more ways to say yes. Before that, I sold cars for a few years. I worked at a retail women's clothing store. And, you know, I sold mattresses, which is also why when I had a client who unfortunately totaled his car going to a showing and he needed to replace it, I physically took him to go replace the car so we didn't mess up his home buying situation. Yes, you by yourself should not go buy a car while you're looking for a house, because it can screw up so many different things. Talk to your loan officer. A lot of times we either know people or are people who can help you do it the right way to not cause you an issue. Do not co-sign for anything, do not what have you. But if you pull up a loan officer, if you have a loan officer who has changed jobs 3 times in as many years, then you got to ask the question why, and you got to find out what's going on. So somebody just asked in TikTok, I have a low credit score, how do I get a loan? So first question is, where are you looking at your credit score? Are you looking at it on myfico.com, or are you looking on it on something like Credit Karma? Because Credit Karma is going to be off anywhere between 50 to 100 points in either direction. If you're looking on, let's say, Equifax or Experian, they're going to be off anywhere between 20 to 50 points in either direction for a mortgage. And the question becomes, why is your credit score low? Okay, so stop looking on Credit Karma. Credit Karma, if you actually look through their blog, they will tell you that their credit score matches up to nothing. They've been sued numerous times. You're better off going with your bank or your credit card company and seeing what they're showing up. They're going to be closer. But myfico.com is really where you need to be. Because of the fact that they give you what your mortgage score is, what your auto loan, what your credit cards, and other loans. And you can actually do a lot more with that information, and it's going to be a lot more accurate. I think that's what it was. Or you can go to my website and we can do a soft poll on 2 of your bureaus and see what's going on. And then we can build you a custom roadmap on how to get your credit score where it needs to be in order to purchase a home. You can purchase a home with as little as a 500 FICO score, but you have to put down 10% and you can't have any collections over $500 total. If you are a credit ghost, means you don't have any negative, you don't have any positives, you literally come up as a credit ghost. There are lenders that will do credit ghosts for both FHA and also VA loans. Actually, VA loans have no minimum FICO score requirement. It just has to make sense. But VA loans themselves do not have a minimum FICO score. I hope that answers a little bit. Feel free to reach out to me personally if you're in one of my 6 states. I'd be happy to go through what to look for and things of that nature. I like answering questions. I like making it easy because nobody ever explains anything to anybody. It's almost like this big shrouded secrecy of how to get it done, and it's really not. And we might have to do a little bit of work on somebody's credit in order to get them where they need to be. We might have to do a little bit work on getting some cash to close. There's all sorts of different, nobody's ever denied, just sometimes delayed. And sometimes we just need to do a little bit of work. Okay, so we are talking about how to verify your loan officer. I'm in Maryland, but look, I'm in Maryland, but looking for properties in Maryland or Delaware. Yeah, I can help in both those locations. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm licensed in both states. As you can see on the lovely screen of my states, but verify your loan officer and just find out how long they've been licensed and if they're a job hopper. If they're saying that they are a senior loan officer and they haven't been licensed for at least 3 years, run. That's just not, just run. Okay, so we went through how to verify your loan officer. And do realtors have preferred loan officers and preferred lenders? Yes. Do you have to use that person? No. If your realtor gives you a loan officer that they like, they should preferably be giving you 3 so that you can shop. And just so you know, when you're shopping for a mortgage, you can, within 30 days, it's really 45, but I always say 30 because life gets busy. Within 30 days, you can pull your credit 950 times and it just counts as 1. Nobody's really going to do that, but don't feel like you're stuck with one lender. Don't think that you should, feel like you're beholden to that one person. I work with over 200 lenders and I tell people all the time to make sure that you're comfortable, go ahead and go shop me. Feel free. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I also know nobody's going to touch my loan. And the only thing that I ask is that you send me the loan estimate Because there's a lot of people who play games with loan estimates. They'll reduce the property taxes or reduce the homeowner's insurance to a ridiculous amount to make the monthly payment look better. They'll reduce the interest rate and they'll charge you a lot of money to reduce that interest rate, and it's not worth it at the end of the day when you get to it. So speaking of interest rates, I want to, that's where we're going to go. I want to set this twice. So I have like 6 different pricing engines. Because when you have over 200 lenders, they're not all going to be in the same place. We're going to log in here. We're going to log in here. So one of the concerns a lot of realtors have is that if you're going FHA, that the house isn't going to qualify for the FHA. That was on the button. And there's very few houses that won't. Sometimes you've got a situation to where you have to do a scrape and repaint, or you have to put up railings or something of that nature. But it's really not that big of a deal. How am I going to get you guys to be able to see both sides here on TikTok? So I need like another 80 or so followers on TikTok, and then I can live stream off the computer so that it's a little bit easier for y'all to see exactly what it is that I'm doing. I don't want no. Yeah, we want QM, search the QM. So while I'm setting this up, make sure we have all the lenders. Lenders, my favorite lenders. It's the review. Set search to QM. We're selecting all the lenders because we have got all the people. Good, you're in there. I can close you out. So when we go to price a loan, this is literally what we're doing. So I'm going to do this one over here. We're going to call this one our conventional. And I'm going to do a 640 credit score. And I'm going to do a 48% debt to income ratio. Because when you're dealing with conventional, your complete debt to income ratio, including the new housing payment, has to be under 50%. We're going to say it's a first-time home buyer. On a conventional loan, you also have to have 3 months worth of reserves. Now, the reserves can be anything from a cash value life insurance policy. They could be a 401k. It could be an IRA. It doesn't have to be liquid sitting in your account, but you do need to have 3 months worth of the mortgage payment sitting somewhere that you can access in case something comes up for reserves. We're not going to say self-employed because it's a whole nother set of things, but I have perfect things for that. And we're just going to leave that jumbo, 30 years, fixed, purchased. And right now, my loan amount that I'm always doing is $350,000. Now, on a conventional loan, you can put down as little as 3%. But to make everything fair, because on an FHA loan, if you're over a 580 FICO score, you have to put down 3.5%. That's your minimum. I'm going to do 3.5% for both sides. Primary residence, single family, 1 unit. We are going to do through 3064, my 305 area. So anybody who doesn't know, I'm actually from Florida, even though I live in Pennsylvania at this point in time. More property attributes. We're not putting in street address. Not mixed use because it's a single family. We're not going to do lender fees, income docs. We're going to do full 24 months. And then we're going to do the same setup over here. Everything else is set up. We're going to call this one FHA. We're doing 640 over here. we're gonna do 48, so we're gonna do 54 here. On an FHA loan, you can go to 56.9. I try to stay 54% or less in case I misanticipate something. We're gonna say this, the same reserves. Actually, you know what? Reserves aren't needed, so we're gonna say no reserves. First time home buyer. We need to change you to FHA. Purchase, we'll change you to 350. We're gonna say it appraised for value. And again, we're gonna go the 96.5 route. Why didn't you ask me that on the other one? I'm a resident, single family detached, 33064. Thank you. Box 24 months. Search. Okay. So let's close these up. So on this side, we're looking at 150 different options. All the way up to an 8.25, 6.75. Conventional loans are always higher. Oh, that's interesting. I want to look at the search fields real quick. So difference between FHA and conventional is really going to come down to debt to income ratio, having reserves, and the overall monthly payment. No, we're not doing that. Oh, I forgot to hit that on the side. There is no prepayment penalty on a purchase loan for a primary residence. Finish this search field real quick too. No. Where do we go? Home ready. So home ready and home possible is what allows you to put down only 3% on a conventional loan. And when you're seeing that 1% down loan, where's my camera? When you're seeing that 1% down that I don't advertise it because of the fact that very few people qualify for it, and the price of the home has to be a very specific amount. Why is this saying? Well, that's the problem. 96.5. Try that one again. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. MI company, PMI, borrow paid, national. You. So we're down to 10 lenders on the conventional side. And you're starting your interest rate at 8.125. Whereas on the FHA, your starting interest rate is only 7%. That's one of the things that people don't realize is that your conventional mortgage interest rate is always higher than your FHA. Your PMI is also higher. Now, the one thing I don't like about this is it doesn't show me what the MI payment's going to be. Versus one of my other sites will do it, but we're using this for now. You're looking in general about a $200 to $300 difference per month for the conventional PMI is higher by $200 to $300 versus on the FHA PMI. Now, if you also notice, this is the lowest interest rate. It's going to cost you $21.03 to get that 8.125% interest rate. And to get that 8.49, you're looking at $27.39, which is insane. And this lender is charging you $11.45 for your underwriting fee, whereas this lender is only charging you $9.95. That's where you got to compare and contrast. Because buying down points doesn't always make sense. If I take you to this 8.625, it's only going to cost you $14.14. This is your cash to close. This is what you have to bring for cash to close in order to get that interest rate. And quite frankly, if I charge you enough, I can make the interest rate anything I want to. So what I normally do is I go through and I take a look and see which one makes the most amount of sense. So this one's only $21.03, but they're charging you $24.12. And the underwriting fee is going to be what? $11.45 versus being $9.95. So this is actually the better option. I'm going over here to the FHA. You're at a 7%, it's going to cost $24.15. But if I take you just a little bit higher to that 7.125, it's only going to cost you $782. And the 7.25 doesn't make any sense, but neither does that. Now, when you see them in green, that's actually lender credit, and that can be used to offset your cash to close. But I'm going to change these both out for my other pricing system, because I think that's going to be better. Just couldn't remember if this allows me to do two or not. It's thinking. Feel free to ask any questions while I'm setting this up. There we go. So we're going to set this back up. 640. We'll do 3 months worth of reserves because it's going to be our conventional. DTI ratio, we're going to do 48. Conventional, we're going to do affordable and standard. We're going to do 4,500 for monthly qualifying income. First time home buyer. About waiving escrows. You can waive escrows. If you're doing a conventional, you cannot waive escrows if you were doing an FHA. And the reason being is if you don't make your insurance payments, then if something happens to the house, the lender can't get that money back. FHA standard. For no reserves. 100. First time home buyer. So here we are. Doesn't make any sense. Can I do it again? You. See this number right here, where it says $464 per month for your mortgage insurance. We go down here to the FHA. We've only got $154 per month in PMI. So not only are we looking at a lower interest rate of 7.125 versus 7.375 in this case. But we've also got much lower PMI. You know, that's probably really, really hard to see on here. But right here, $154 a month for PMI on your FHA versus $464. So you're looking at $27.97 before you ever get to taxes and homeowners insurance on a slightly higher interest rate for the conventional versus $24.69 on the FHA. Which one would you rather pay? And that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about the difference between FHA versus conventional. It comes down to the monthly payment, and everybody wants a monthly payment that they're comfortable with, right? Nobody wants to pay more than they have to. Here's another benefit to your FHA loans. I'm going to switch this around for a second. I can see my crazy face for a minute. I'm going to stop the screen share over here. But not only does your FHA loan allow for lower credit scores, you don't have to have reserves, a lower monthly payment, it allows for a little bit more leniency on your debt to income ratio, on blemishes on your credit report, on things of that nature. Do I have people in the 800 FICO score who go FHA? Yes, because it's a better monthly payment, because they don't want to put down that amount of money. It's a lower interest rate. Now, on a conventional loan, after 11 years, or once you get to an 80% loan to value, you can request for the PMI to come off, or it just drops off automatically. On an FHA loan, you'd have to put down 10% in order to do that. Or when you refinance, because none of us are keeping these loans. Any loan that's produced from the end of last year, end of this summer till interest rates drop, they're not keeping their loans. These are not your forever loans. And people get mad at the whole thing of date the rate and marry the house, but it's because we know you're not keeping this loan. On average, people refinance their property 5 to 7 years. And whether it be to pull cash out, to lower the interest rate, they refinance 5 to 7 years. I have investors who refinance every 2 years because they're pulling that equity out in order to purchase more homes. So it's a little bit different timetable and things of that nature. But the fact of the matter is, there's nothing wrong with either loan. Now, sellers agents have a problem with FHA loans because the house has to be in reasonably good condition. I don't understand why that's a problem. It has to be safe, because if somebody falls and sues you, they can turn around and basically own your house and not have to pay the mortgage, and nobody wants that. You don't want that. I don't want that. It's not a good thing. So that's why they have to have railings if there's an 18-inch drop or more. And the railings are inside and out. So if there's a front stoop that has an 18-inch drop, you're gonna have to throw a railing up there. It's not that big of a deal. It's a couple 2x4s. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's not even required to be load bearing, quite frankly. There just has to be something there. So when somebody says, oh, I fell and didn't know there was, but there was a railing there. So how did you not know? Reasonably good condition. Peeling paint. That's a sign of lead-based paint somewhere. And while most homes have been repainted several times since lead-based paint was a thing, it's still in the guidelines or what have you. If there is a watermark on the ceiling, they're going to ask for a roof search to make sure that your roof is okay and you don't have to turn around and put a new roof on the house immediately. These aren't bad things. Now, when it comes to appraisals versus inspections, they're not the same thing. Your appraiser, no matter what loan type, is just looking for they're looking for the price of the house on the appraisal. If there's something blaring that could be a health issue or a hazard, or they're going to point that out and ask for it to be repaired before they'll close on the loan. So again, your home inspector, though, is going to be there for about 2 to 3 hours, depending on the size of the house. They're jumping up on the roof or throwing a drone up there. They're going in crawl spaces. They're going in attics. They are pulling out appliances. They are looking at your electrical panel. They are checking to make sure everything works. There are some appraisers who are thorough, and they'll turn on a stove or an oven. They'll make sure the water runs. They'll make sure the toilet flushes. But that's really more so your home inspector. And if you just search home inspector on either one of these two platforms and see some of the things that people are finding when they do home inspections, it's insane. There's a lot of delayed maintenance out there. I'm trying to think what else. What other questions do we have out there that I can possibly answer for everybody? FHA loans are not bad. They are not. They actually help quite a few people for quite a few different reasons. The biggest one right now, honestly, is that's income ratio, because people are out there paying $800 to $1,300 a month for a car payment, and that messes with how much house you can afford. And if you had to buy a car in the last couple of years, it's not easy. Look, most people aren't good at negotiating in the first place, but especially these days where they're saying there's a chip shortage and there's no inventory and what have you, a lot of people, they had to get a replacement car. There was nothing they could do. Used cars were through the roof. New cars were were kind of stuck. And it was really hard to negotiate if you were in severe need for a new car for whatever reason. But it is what it is, and that's where we're at. But FHA loans are not bad. VA loans are the best loans out there. If you can qualify for a VA loan, that is the loan that you want. There is no PMI on that. There is no minimum FICO score. There is no maximum debt to income ratio. The guidelines on a VA loan are set up to where it has to make sense. It has to make sense for you to be able to afford the house and pay it back. Your credit has to make sense. If you're constantly late on every one of your payments on a consistent basis, if you're in credit repair and those accounts are in credit repair, they can't be counted against you. If they are accounts that are not in credit repair, then there's some explaining that we have to do as to why those payments were late, and how you're going to avoid it in the future. And again, it comes down to the underwriter. Underwriters are God. Let me say that again, in case Aggie's out there listening. Underwriters are the God of the loan. Your loan officer's job is to know how to put the information together in a way to make it easy for the underwriter to understand what's going on and get through the file. The easier your loan officer makes it for the underwriter, the easier the underwriter is going to be for you. The more your loan officer understands the regulations and the lender overlays, the easier the file is going to go through. The fact of the matter is, if your loan is taking over 30 days to close, your loan officer didn't do their job. Flat out, they didn't do their job. And I get so many people, so many loan officers who get mad at me because here in the United States, there's a lot of loan officers who don't know that they cannot pre-approve a loan. Can't. As per our license, we can't. If you go on the CFPB, their blog says pre-approval versus pre-qualification should be treated the same. And to a degree, they should, as far as a realtor taking somebody out to go shop, especially if that realtor trusts that loan officer. But we as licensed professionals have to know that the CFPB says you do not have underwriting authority, and only an underwriter can approve a loan. So therefore only an underwriter can pre-approve a loan. If you work for a brokerage like I do, until you submit that loan to a lender and get the underwriter's review back, you cannot call that a pre-approval. And I'm starting to see more and more of the officials cracking down on that. And I'm glad for that, because the number of loans I've had to save over the years because somebody went to a lender who didn't know the overlays, they didn't know the guidelines, they didn't know anything. They got the client under contract, submitted it to the lender, and within 2 minutes got a thing back going, oh no, you're not approved. I had a client who went to nursing school. She had had her job for 2 months. She went under contract, went to underwriting. Underwriting said, you haven't been at your job long enough. Come back when you've been there for 6 months. She just got out of school. That's not how that works. I was able to get her closed in 15 days because I know that the guideline states her education counts for her work experience. That's how 18-year-olds can buy a house. An 18-year-old can buy a house. It depends upon their income. It also depends upon how long they've been at their job. So if an 18-year-old gets a salary position, first paycheck, job offer letter, they can buy a house. If an 18-year-old has an hourly job, I need 6 months, and that position has to have a minimum number of hours that you have to work. They can get a house because their high school education counts as their work history. When we say we need 24 months worth of employment, it's not 24 consecutive months. It's not 24 months at the same employer. It's just 24 months. So if you were with a spouse and had children and became the stay-at-home parent, you're not going to get penalized for staying at home with the kids. You just need a letter of explanation. You still need to show 24 months worth of income. And let's say you stayed home for 2 years. So it's 2023, you stayed home for 2 years. So we need income from now, since you went back to work. And then from say 2021 back until we fill the 24 months. And then we need a letter of explanation for that gap. Easy. If you had a family member who got sick, COVID, a lot of people wind up being the caretakers for their family members because the hospitals were insane and they were doing all sorts of weird things. So if you took time out of your life to care for a family member, so your 24 months isn't consecutive, we just need a letter of explanation. It has to be valid. They might want a letter from a doctor stating that, this is what was going on with that specific person, and that they did need additional care, but it's not 24 months at the same job. It's not required to be 24 months consecutive. If you are a union worker, specifically, if you're a union worker in the trades, listen up. One of the hard parts for you is you have like 50 W-2s sometimes in a year because you actually work for the union, but you get assigned different jobs at different points. That's not a problem. Your loan officer needs to set up your loan that your employer is the union. And then they need a letter of explanation. Most unions can print out basically what you got paid at any job that you were at and match them up to the W-2s, and you're good to go. Now, if you have a bad loan officer, they're not going to be able to tell that story effectively. I had a client who had that issue. They went under contract and they got denied as soon as they got to underwriting because the loan officer didn't know how to set up a union job. I come from a union family. I come from a military family. I understand how those things work. Let's see. Anybody have any questions that I can answer? Either on Facebook or on TikTok? Yes, I'm on both. You know, your credit score is a concern. It does help with getting everything through. However, it's not the final thought process. You can have, if you're under, actually, if you have any collections on your account that are over $500, we need to deal with those one way or the other. Whether you do a pay to delete or you just dispute the bejeebers out of it. And speaking of disputes, when you dispute something on your credit report and then go apply for a loan, we're going to make you take those disputes off because it artificially inflates your credit score. And that's a problem for the lender. They want to know your real credit score. Before you go to do any dispute on your credit report, a couple things you need to do. You need to go through your credit report and find any name that is not the name that you're currently using. So if somebody fat fingered in your first name and they put, like for me, they'll put, in my case, they'll put an S, even though this isn't my legal name, but sometimes they'll put in one L instead of two L's, which is a simple mistake. But the moment somebody does that, when they go to pull your credit, it makes that data not line up. So they put on there, here's also your alias. So you want to dispute every name that's not yours. I've gone through before, after a situation with my ex, and I disputed every name on my credit report that didn't have my legal first, middle, and last name fully spelled out. Unless it had all of it, I was disputing it off that report. So that when I disputed any of the other things that were in my credit report, they couldn't match it up to the name. Because unless they had the first, middle, and last name fully spelled out, it wasn't showing up in my credit report. You also need to dispute any address on your credit report that is not your current address. So you want to dispute names that are not your full name, because most of us don't use our full name, and you want to dispute the address that is not your current address. Because that way, when you go to dispute the other debts, anything that you want to dispute, when they can't match up the name and address, they can't validate the debt, they have to remove it off your credit report. Does it mean it's not going to go back up? No. But by disputing the names and disputing the addresses, it makes it harder for them, makes it more difficult. Are there credit repair companies out there that I recommend? Yes. My Credit Guy is my favorite. You'll see me pop videos up from them every once in a while. And the reason being is they're very good at what they do. They do it specifically for mortgages, and they will tell you if it doesn't make sense for you to continue in credit repair. They're the only ones I have found that will say to you, I don't think we're going to be able to do anything beneficial for you. It doesn't make sense. Here's some things to do instead. Because sometimes it's a question of you don't have enough positive credit. And, you know, having a parent add you as an authorized user will make that flip. Sometimes it's, you know, you need to pay down some of your debts that aren't that high, but the available credit versus utilized credit is causing an issue. Something that's simple. I'm all about people who are willing to say no to a client because it's in their best interest. So like new construction, I won't do new construction unless it's a printed home. The inspection reports that I've gotten back, the home inspection, were insane in 2021. And I'm like, I can't. I work with a lot of first-time home buyers. I work with a lot of veterans, and I can't. Mobile homes, I don't do because there's a lot of things to them, and I don't think I can serve you best on those. Also, coming from Florida, I don't think they're a good investment. They don't really up. I had a client who was getting out of a mobile home to go into a standard home. And in order to get him, it was a nightmare to get him out because I had approved the lot rent was going away. And he could either destroy the mobile home for $3,000. Literally, it would cost him $3,000 to destroy it. Or he could sell it to this investor company He buys them, refurbs them, and rents them out. But he could sell it to this investor guy for $1 or destroy it for 3,000. Okay. And then the underwriter turned around, was just like, okay, I need proof that he sold it for $1 and I need to see that dollar deposited in his account. No, you don't. No, you don't need to see $1 deposited into his account. That's just, you're being ridiculous. You're just being ridiculous. And they were. Okay, guys. I've been on here for an hour. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer? So every Wednesday I'm doing these lives. I'm trying to make sure that I have a topic each time. There's certain things I'm always going to go over, such as myfico.com, such as going to my website. If you think you're ready to purchase, in order to do the soft credit pull, yeah, I'm looking at myself on Facebook Live, and that one's taking a little bit longer. There's a bit of a delay. Yes, my desk is a mess. Nobody cares. Yeah. What I want to do is those are in the way. This button right here on my website. And if you Google my name, you'll find me everywhere. I'm loud and obnoxious. But that button is that big, huge button is where you can check to find out if your credit score qualifies for a mortgage or if we need to do a little bit of work. If you're in my 6 states, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and my home state of Florida, feel free to hit that button. It doesn't cost you anything. And again, it's a soft inquiry. If you're not in one of those, in one of my states, I do have coworkers that can help you, that I can connect you with. Just reach out to me. My information's in my bio. The link to this website is also in my bio. The link to everything is in my bio. I make it easy because I'm just too many different places or what have you. If there's a specific question about a specific type of loan program, reach out. If you're currently under contract right now and you're dealing with a lender or loan officer and something doesn't seem right, feel free to reach out. I don't know how many of you know Later Wendy. She is a consumer advocate on TikTok. And she set up a website to where you can, just submit your loan estimate, and people like myself and other loan officers that she's vetted will go through and tell you the goods and the bads, because there's a lot of ways that we can hide things. Do not ever concentrate on the monthly payment or the interest rate when you're looking at a loan estimate. You want to look to see, do the property taxes make sense? Do they seem like the average for your area? Does the homeowner's insurance make sense? Does it seem like the average for your area? And do they even tell you what they're estimating for those? You want to look at your cash to close, because I can make your interest rate anything I want to if I charge you enough, but is that in your best interest? I don't like permanent buy downs, because on a permanent buy down, if you go to refinance, you lost that money that you put into it. And for 1 point, which costs you 1%, but it only drops your interest rate by about 1/8 of a point, it's going to take you 66 months to break even on every $100,000 of home. Temporary buy downs, I like those, because you don't lose anything. If you refinance before the temporary buy down period is over, that money goes towards a principal reduction, so you're not losing those funds. And your point buy down is not tax deductible. Let's see. I have no questions on Facebook. Do I have any questions on TikTok that I can answer for anybody about any loan type at all whatsoever? Because again, we have loans that people don't even know exist. We have solutions for anything that comes up that may be causing you a problem or holding you back. If you're not ready, and I need to say this important thing, If you are not ready to purchase a home mentally, don't do it and don't feel like you have to, or you're missing out. If you are ready mentally and you're just not sure where to go, where to start, how to get information, reach out to myself. You know, if you're in one of my 6 states, I can personally help. If you're not in my 6 states, I can connect you to other people who work with me, have the same access to what I do, and that I trust, except for New York and Massachusetts. We're still working on those. But there's help out there. These big lenders, your Rocket Mortgage, your Wells Fargo, your Loan Depot, they will take your application and go, no, we can't approve you. End of story. There are certain loans that I don't have access to. Even with all these lenders, there's certain loans I don't have access to. But I can tell you about them, not the loans. I don't have access to them. USDA 502 Direct, I don't have access to it, but I can tell you what to know about them. And I can tell you whether or not they're going to make sense for you. USDA loans are one of my favorite loans ever, but they don't fit for every person for a multitude of reasons, but they're more widely available than everybody thinks that they are. Again, down payment assistance programs are not just for first-time home buyers. Some of them require you to be a first-time home buyer, some of them don't. The other thing is too, is that some of them have a caveat if you're recently separated from your partner, if there was a recent divorce, so you're a displaced previous homeowner due to a divorce, they'll count you back as a first-time home buyer for those first-time home buyer programs. It's a question of reading through the whole thing and knowing what you need to know about each program and whether or not the pros outweigh the cons. Okay, guys, since nobody has any additional questions, hopefully I'll see you next week. Feel free to reach out if there are anything I can answer in the meantime.